Hi, everyone, and welcome to our presentation today. We're going to give everyone a few minutes to join, and then we'll get started. All right, so it looks like the rate of people joining has slowed down, so I think we'll go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. My name is Katelyn Formal, and I am joined today by my colleagues Seth Rosenberg and Sam Martin. Today we have a short presentation to you where we're going to discuss what offerings Lineate has to help you and your team prepare for the different modernization trends that we are currently seeing in public health. So a few housekeeping items before we get started. Um, Everyone's on mute, but if you have questions, please feel free to ask them in the Q&A or chat portion, and we will be sure to address all of those. We'll also be sending out both the education and services catalogs that we will be for all of the different offerings that we will be discussing after this session. So first off, what we're going to be discussing today. So, today our focus is going to be on the different training and services offerings that Lineate has to help your teams and the different things you can take advantage of as far as those different education offerings. We're kind of just first start with why we are currently talking about how we can help you guys prepare and why these different changes are occurring. So kind of start with the different trends that we're currently seeing and why we see public health taking advantage. We're currently seeing a lot of our public health clients take advantage of training and education in services offerings at this time. So we'll start with discussing those trends, and then we'll hop into Seth is going to kind of go over some different custom training options that we have, go over our new FHIR workshop and our new FHIR training course as we see those trends evolving in public health. Then I'm going to talk about some different service offerings, so how we can help you assist in different upgrades, go over what you might see in a health check, so how we can take a look at your environment and give you recommendations on how we can make changes and how you can apply different strategies to help modernize your infrastructure and pretty much everything that we can offer as far as services. So with that, what trends are we seeing? I think everyone understands that the past year, COVID has pretty much influenced not only every aspect of our lives, but also, of course, you guys know best, has had a huge influence on what we have seen as far as public health. I know in our different sessions that we've hosted over the past year, we've heard your concerns about how you as well had changes in message volumes. You've had to make adjustments to your engine, allocating new memory. You've had to redo some of your routes to accommodate increased message size that you guys have been seeing, especially for your EICR documents and things like that. So as those changes have occurred, we want to make sure that your engine and your staff is prepared and can mitigate those changes as they arise. We've also seen a marked increase in the amount of funding that is available to public health entities. We know that this isn't, about, you guys aren't like all of a sudden going to be in the same level as, the private sector as far as different buying power that you have. But as this funding becomes available, we've seen a lot of our public health clients take advantage of this funding to better educate their staff. As I know a lot of your teams have had to, due to COVID, have had to increase staff. You guys are training up new people. So use this funding to get their staff educated and to increase their Rhapsody footprint, and to take some time to look at their engine and make the changes that they need. In addition to all of the COVID relating changes, just in general, we've seen a lot of changes in how entities exchange data. We've seen an increase in the use of FHIR and API type integrations. So instead of the transactional based healthcare, the way our entities are communicating and reporting data is moving toward FHIR. So as healthcare in general moves more toward that API based integration patterns, I think we're going to see a lot of changes into how different groups are reporting different data, and that's going to be through FHIR. Especially as COVID has inspired a lot of different startups as far as test reporting and immunization reporting, to capture that different information. And a lot of those new applications are communicating using FHIR. In addition to FHIR, we're seeing a lot more, across the healthcare ecosystem, a lot more applications are being hosted and moved into the cloud. This is a trend that we've seen in other industries over the past decade, but historically healthcare has been very hesitant to have any footprints that isn't in an on-premise. Of course, a lot of that has to do with the different security concerns, but now that the cloud infrastructure has become more widely accepted, we need to adapt our knowledge and our integration patterns to be able to accommodate cloud-based integrations. And Seth, do you want to add anything, regarding different trends that you've seen?
Yeah. So hi, friends. Seth Rosenberg here. Just like Katelyn, I'm a solution consultant working with customers both in pre and post sales to really tackle all facets of the engine. And definitely, I want to mimic what Katelyn said about the cloud. Excuse me, friends. 10 years ago, if you would have said to any type of healthcare CIO, hey, we want to put this in AWS, right? That person would have laughed you out of their office. And as Katelyn had mentioned, right, the acceptance and the appetite and the, also worthwhileness of those tools, right? They've proved themselves. We have, HIPAA compliant AWS clouds available to us and other types of, security features that, they're building in to make everything, more fail-safe, more secure, and easier to replicate. So I think as, that concept of continuous deployment or continuous delivery starts to creep more and more into our lives, you will see an even larger jump to the cloud. And especially things like support for containerized deployments and other newer, more kind of DevOps ways of hosting engines or hosting services so that, their uptime and security and other things can be automated. And I think as, more and more folks do that, we're seeing a lot of our friends in the HCIT sector really move to the cloud, or not even want to consider on-premise anymore. I think within 5 or 7 more years, we'll see a whole heck of a lot of friends in the cloud across both public and private sector. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Yep, thank you, Seth. I think with that, we'll go ahead and transition over to the different education offerings that we have to help you guys tackle all of these trends that we're seeing.
Yep, and that's where I'm going to take over. And I just want to make sure everybody's hearing me all clear. Am I sounding okay? Am I closer to the mic now? Is that better?
Yes.
Lovely. All right. So I'm going to be showing a few things, but first I just want to make sure, Katelyn, can you confirm that you can see my education catalog here?
I can.
Wonderful. So going to talk to you a little bit about our education offerings and kind of also loop that in with some of the upgrade services that'll help us segue back to Katelyn talking about health checks. Now, I'm sure a lot of you friends over the course of your tenures in your varied positions have, taken or experienced some shape or form of our Rhapsody education. I'd be willing to bet that more than a dozen of you on this call, if not pretty much everybody, has their Rhapsody Associate certification and perhaps even their Pro. But you may not be aware, of some of the other offerings that we have. And we also know that, your teams have been staffing up, or there may be a lot of new faces. And we just want to make sure, you friends are remembering some of these materials that we have available to you to get you educated. So I'm going to take you through it. And then right there, we've even got Mr. Brett from our education team. He would be actually the one grading your Rhapsody Associate and Professional Finals when you get to them. And that's Claire, who you guys might have worked with getting your access in there. But, here at Lineate, we really have 5 different types of, training we can offer. We can do, custom instructor-led trainings. I've actually done 3 myself this year, and I'm going to actually show you a little bit of what that is. But that's really us kind of tailoring the training to exactly what you know and care about. For example, I did a training earlier this year with an HCIT, and they only cared about getting messages out of a database, turning them into JSON, and posting them into a web service. They didn't necessarily, need to focus through the lens of HL7. And so we were able to then kind of combine the concepts you would find in Rhapsody Associate with the specific training that they were looking to get. Now, the training I'm going to assume you friends are probably most familiar with is the online training. That's our Rhapsody Academy, where we're going to have, again, those associate, professional, expert modules, even some other modules for other different types of educational experiences, including, kind of that business side or managerial education, as well as folks who are really only going to be in monitoring and not necessarily in development. We're on a webinar right now, right? So obviously this is one of those mediums that we connect with you. I think combination also kind of speaks for itself. We can, do the associate certification as a class if you'd like. In fact, Mr. Brett, featured on that earlier slide, will teach the Rhapsody Associate to a group of people over 5 days. And at the end, you take your final and leave with your certificate. So really ultimately leads us to that final and most important piece. It can be custom. If there are things you specifically care about and there are other things that you already feel you're an expert in, we'd be happy to put together any type of training from 2 to 4 hours to 3 to 5 days to help you get that proficiency that you need. So just want to highlight a few courses I think you guys might not necessarily be familiar with. The Rhapsody introductory course is a new one that I think is really kind of interesting because it's only 1 to 2 hours, and really the goal is to just kind of teach a non-healthcare person or a non-integration friend what Rhapsody is, what it does, and frankly why they should care about it, right? I'm sure you friends all have folks in your management structure that understand that Rhapsody is this magic black box, problems go in, solutions come out, but they may not understand it at a more granular level. And this 1 to 2 hours that they spend could really maybe help them kind of connect at a deeper level and understand some of those concepts and ultimately enable a little bit, better communication through the team. It's also just a great way to kind of start introducing anybody to interoperability concepts who has never talked about them before. The other one I think is worthwhile to call out is the basic maintenance. Now, this is for our friends that maybe are going to be, those NOC type people. They're dealing with the, uptime and monitoring and management. They're only logging into the management console, right? They're not necessarily in the IDE building tools or developing interfaces. They're strictly monitor. And so we have a course that has basically kind of siphoned out all of the important topics from the associates when it comes to strictly monitoring, management, and troubleshooting. And so this course can be completed in just about a day. And then you can have your new, knock friends, or the folks who are going to be running your machines up and educated. I do know that a lot of you friends do wear dual hats. You do development as well as monitoring and error queue management. This can also just be a nice little refresher course for you. The next couple I'm not going to spend too much time on, because I think these are the ones that we are by far most familiar with. The Rhapsody Associate Certification is going to take you from 0 to dangerous. You're going to learn all of the fundamentals of Rhapsody. It's a 40 hours, 10 modules, self-paced. You build a working end-to-end interface at the end, and it is graded by Mr. Brett. And you then are, able to receive that certification. The professional is going to build on, those concepts. It's going to take you from that, I know about what everything is doing to, extremely professional and proficient. Gets into a little bit more complicated business logic and a little bit more complicated stuff on the database side. And then these are some other things you may not be familiar with, but we have expert level modules. These are different, 2 to 10 hour modules that allow you to learn a granular thing in exquisite detail. So for example, we have like the Rhapsody developer kit. I know for a fact, some of you friends have built your own custom communication points to, support things that weren't necessarily inherently supported in the engine. Excuse me. So, you can get a, crash course in how to do that. Advanced JavaScript, which has, not only been, a class that we have online, but Sam Martin has actually taught that in person at previous user groups, and then some of these other things you see here. I do now want to call our attention to some of our courses in person here. We have our FHIR First Steps, and this is a new thing that is entirely engine agnostic. And the whole goal is that with a 4-hour session, you're going to go from 0 to 60 in your FHIR knowledge. So it'll teach you all of the standard concepts. You'll learn about REST web services, what FHIR is, why you should care about it, how to read the specs, and what to do with this information going forward. So this is something that we offer that is a really great starting point for any friends that are not familiar with FHIR. Now, taking that, kicking that up a notch, so to speak, we also have our Co-Creation Lab FHIR Development Workshop. In previous user groups, some of you friends may have encountered our co-creation director, Sean Zatello. He's a really, really funny and smart dude, and he's got a really cool approach to, using Rhapsody for FHIR and really, squeezing every last ounce of juice out of the engine to get the best and most repeatable FHIR performance that you can. And he has actually built this workshop, conducted over the course of a month, and it allows us to take a bunch of different concepts, build them all together, and ultimately walk away with FHIR maps and the full confidence of how you would use your Rhapsody engine to basically do everything you need to do in FHIR. And so it takes you through things like API development, open authorization, right? Why these things matter to you. Then we've got session 1, an introduction to all of the concepts, some exercises, a second session, and these are typically done like 1 day a week. So over the course of a month, you'll meet, say, every Thursday or every Friday with Sean and probably myself to run through these sessions with you. We have a full session on mapping and transformation, a full session on validity, terminology, and how to use the implementation guides. And then we have our different maps projects, which we can take you through and teach you how to map from all sorts of different standards to one to another. There are modules on the bulk data access or any other types of things that you may need to do with that. And it ultimately, really brings us concisely through everything that you will need to ultimately, be a super FHIR professional. And we have had some of our public health customers already, inquire about scheduling these. And it's really a way that you can kind of get that dual education and artifact, right? So from this class, you not only walk away with, the knowledge from all of your friends who've taken it, but you actually walk away with these FHIR maps. You actually walk away with some of these configurations, and you can take them back and directly import them into your engine, and boom, you've got templates. So it's a really great way to not only get educated, but get a leg up on anything you might be trying to do. And I think it's just fun to highlight, some of these big documents and all these other things that Sean has put together, right? He's got all sorts of different, schemas and all sorts of different documents that are going to allow you to really simply understand this. Postman collections for proxying, in and out. He's really put a lot of love and a lot of thought into this course. And I think, it's definitely a very fun and worthwhile use of time. So before I pass it back to Katelyn, I do want to take just a moment to highlight that Rhapsody 6.7 has come out. And I do know that sometimes in, healthcare in general, we can sometimes let our engines sit on older versions. We don't necessarily need to fix what isn't broke. And from that, we may still find ourselves running on earlier versions of Rhapsody, 6.1, 6.2, 6.3, 6.4. 6.7 has just come out as of last week, has a lot of fun new features, including, some of the things that were directly asked about, like Rhapsody saving your configurations in case the VPN that you have to your network drops. That was something that came up out of COVID that, we wanted to hurry up and implement, as we do know that working from home is pretty much the new standard. Lots of other fun things, including a full new documentation repository. And so, always happy to be talking about those improvements. And we are going to be changing to a quarterly cadence. So Rhapsody 6.8 will be due out in the fall, and then Rhapsody 7.0 following up there shortly around the new year. That being said, our services teams can be engaged to assist you in upgrades should you need. If you want to ensure that all of your, validation testing or, the new architect footprint that you've got for your infrastructure is doing okay, we are happy to be engaged on those. We are happy to help you, really make sure that that footprint is optimized and make sure that you're getting to the latest and greatest so that you can use all these new fun features. So with that, Katelyn, I think I'm going to pass it back to you now. And yeah, obviously, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to inquire. Happy to answer them.
Thank you, Seth. All right. Are you, Seth, can you confirm you're seeing my PowerPoint again?
You are good to go.
Awesome. So like Seth said, I'm just going to discuss a few of the service offerings that we have. And Seth touched on the first one, which is different upgrade services that we offer. We know sometimes in public health can let your engines lag a little behind. So even if you are skipping a lot of versions, our staff is there to help. In addition to upgrade services, we can also do what we call a health check. So a health check, and this is something that we have seen our public health customers take advantage of a lot recently, especially as they've had those increased, message volumes, and they realized that some of those routes that they've had a few people touching over the years, and they haven't really taken the time to dissect them. It's a good time to review those and get some help to make sure that everything is working seamlessly from in the entire Rhapsody ecosystem. So this is typically a 2-week engagement that the first week is spent. Typically in historical times it was on site, but now we just need to make sure that that professional service resource would have access to your environment, and also have an admin type user available to assist them in understanding how the different routes work, and to discuss different aspects of the Rhapsody architecture, and to get a feel for what your pain points are, because the health check will of course start with any issues that you're currently having. That professional services resource will, kind of tackle and evaluate and give a current analysis of your entire Rhapsody ecosystem, and then also provide you with recommendations on how on different changes that you can make to streamline different processes. So they'll do a complete review of your architecture. Make sure you're what version is your engine on? Do you have disaster recovery in place? Do you have any redundancy? What operating system are you using? Is that up to date? Do you have any processes on that OS that are causing any service interruptions? They'll take a look at your configuration and see if your routes are configured efficiently, making sure communication points have the appropriate security configured. Is your code streamlined? Are you using high resource JavaScript functions when there are simpler ways to execute the same task? They'll do a review of your notifications in your different other administrative settings, like your user groups. They can make recommendations on your folder and naming structure, so it's easier for you to find things. So they'll take a look at pretty much everything within the engine. And this is kind of like a sample of what you'll get. That resource will kind of create a document that kind of does a current state analysis. So for the architecture, it's going to do a review of what your environment looks like. What version are you currently on? What's currently in your data store? Do a review of that configuration. It's going to take a look at, do you have a ton of lookup failures? Are you processing large documents? What is your current state? And from there, that resource is going to also configure a document that consists of different recommendations and how you can fix these different things. So before I hop over and show you kind of an example of what that report might look like, I just kind of wanted to bring in my colleague Sam, if you can add any color to what you do in a health check, what a typical engagement would look like, and the type of things that you typically see, and what can help.
Sure. So yeah, typically what we do is we will go in. Well, generally people will get request a health check when something's ailing with their configuration. So generally, as I said, the first week is kind of understand both what their current problems are and what their current environment looks like, as well as how they're expecting to use the engine in terms of any new interfaces or volume increases over the next year or two. So generally, we will sit down, and it's very active in the sense that it's not just the implementation consultant digging around, but also working with the current staff to understand the workflows, to see kind of the history of them, and look at some pain points as well. Typically in the first week, we get a good idea of certain things that could be changed relatively quickly to alleviate certain problems. And depending on the client depending on the configuration and what the problems are, we may actually even be able to build out rebuild the problematic interfaces, or at least one of them that week, to get it into testing. So that's kind of the first part of it. Second part, we go back, of course, and we'll not only make recommendations on what to change, but specifically what we would expect them to alleviate, and the level of effort that it would take to do, which is kind of an important thing. So you can go ahead and then determine, after the health check's done, what you want to tackle first, as far as it's going to be a quick win or what will have the most impact on there. And generally, also, I will give kind of an RLC, kind of mapping out some of the proposed changes. Obviously, only a week to build all that. It's not going to be something that you just drop into your test environment and start get going with, but it's usually is a good starting point. And then finally, also in here, is that we will go ahead and typically have between 1 and 3 hours worth of meetings at the end to discuss the recommendations. So.
Yeah, just going to what Sam said, the recommendations, the implementation consultant will kind of categorize those and, what's going to be the benefit to making those changes and what's the level of effort. So obviously it helps you kind of get the low hanging fruit type of things first. And, he'll give, specific recommendations on, which routes can be changed and what things are engine wide. So it's very helpful engagement, and you can make, and kind of shows you can make a lot of small changes that might have a really big impact, but they're just things that you need a second set of eyes to evaluate. So thank you, Sam. Yeah, so in addition to, go ahead and show, go back to our services catalog here. Since you're the health check, we also, can do things like custom engagements. You can get a professional services representative to just build a custom interface. So we can do, our services team can fill any gaps you need for things as small as just, I need to build a simple new ELR interface and I just don't have the staff to do it, to full-time staff augmentation. Our staff can also do things like, evaluate your current hardware infrastructure and see if there's certain upgrades or changes that you can make to, to make your infrastructure more redundant and things like that. So definitely take advantage. We have a very experienced professional services team. I think the average tenure of that group is something like 10 plus years working in Rhapsody. So definitely a very experienced team. So that kind of go ahead and wrap up our presentation here and just kind of go over. We have some other lineage activities that we want to make sure that you guys are taking advantage of. We have our monthly. We have our public health user groups, and those are hosted now once a quarter. Our next session will be in July, so I hope everyone in the public health space looks out for that invite coming out soon. Additionally, we have restarted our Rhapsody monthly user webinars. These are going to take place every month, I think on the second Tuesday. I think I might change that, second Thursday. Our next session is going to be June 17th at 10 Eastern time. We will be rotating between different time zones. So every other month it will be at 10 Eastern, and then the months in between it will be at 6 p.m. Eastern time to accommodate some of our international colleagues and clients. Our annual Lineate user group is going to be in October this year. It will be have virtual offerings, so we hope everyone can attend. And I also just want to remind everyone that our account managers are always available for your questions or concerns. I'm not sure if they're on today, but both Scott Simpson and Katie Bond are happy to help you with any questions you may have. Feel free to reach out to Seth, Sam, and I if you have any questions about the training or services offerings that Lineate provides. I think with that, let's go ahead and open it up for questions. Have any questions come in, Seth?
I've not seen any so far, but again, just like you mentioned, should anybody need anything from us, we're always happy to help. And I think on that note then, I will bid you a wonderful afternoon. Katelyn, thank you for your awesome presentation today. Sam, I want to thank you again for joining. And as always, stay well, and we will talk with you soon.